The text from my sister lit up my phone. Final wedding details attached. I opened the itinerary, scanning for my name. Nothing. I called Mom immediately. "Where are my flight and hotel details?" Her voice turned sugary sweet. "Oh, Gareth, honey. We forgot to book your seat and hotel room. Everything's completely full now." My stomach dropped as I heard muffled laughter in the background. This wasn't forgetfulness. My own family had deliberately excluded me from my sister's wedding in Hawaii, and they weren't even trying to hide it. I stood in my apartment kitchen, phone still pressed to my ear, trying to process what my mother had just told me. At 32 years old, I had learned to expect little from my family. But this blindsided me completely. "Mom, that is impossible. Ashley's wedding has been planned for over a year. How could you forget to book arrangements for your own son?" "These things happen, Gareth," she said, with a dismissive lightness that made my blood pressure spike. "It is not like you were in the wedding party anyway. Maybe you can watch the live stream." "Live stream? Are you serious right now?" I paced across my small living room, running my free hand through my hair. "Cannot you call the resort and explain the situation? There has to be a way to get me there." My mother sighed dramatically. "Honey, it is peak season in Maui. Everything's already tried." Something in her tone told me he had done no such thing. After hanging up, I immediately called Ashley. My sister and I had always been close, despite the dysfunctional family dynamics. While my parents and brother Tyler openly treated me as the family outcast, Ashley had been my ally. "Ash, please tell me this is some kind of mistake," I said when she answered. "Gareth," she whispered, sounding genuinely upset. "I am so sorry. I thought Mom and Dad had taken care of your arrangements. They handled everyone else's." Everyone else's? I pulled up Instagram on my laptop while we spoke and started scrolling. Sure enough, cousin after cousin, aunt after uncle, all posting excited updates about their upcoming trip to Ashley's Hawaiian wedding. Even relatives from the Midwest, who hadn't seen Ashley in years, had confirmed accommodations. "Even Tyler's going?" I asked, spotting my brother's smug post about his first-class ticket. Yes. Mom and Dad insisted he be there. You know how they are about appearances?" While Ashley continued apologizing, her phone pinged with a message. "Oh shoot, hold on, Gareth." A moment later, my own phone buzzed. Ashley had accidentally sent me a screenshot meant for her fiancé Jordan. It showed a family group chat. I wasn't part of titled Ashley's Wedding Main Group. The visible messages made my entire body go cold. Mom handled the Gareth situation, told him everything's booked up. Dad, good. Last thing we need is him making a scene or embarrassing us in front of Jordan's family. Tyler, did he buy it? Mom, hook, line and sinker. He will not be bothering us in Hawaii. I couldn't speak for several seconds as the truth settled over me. This wasn't a mistake or oversight. They had deliberately excluded me, creating an elaborate lie about forgetting to book my arrangements. "Gareth, are you still there?" Ashley's voice sounded small and far away. "You need to explain this right now," I said, forwarding the screenshot back to her. Her gasp seemed genuine. "Oh my God, Gareth, I had no idea. I swear I thought you were included in all the planning. They told me everyone was taken care of." I hung up and immediately called my father, anger coursing through my veins. "Dad, cut the crap. I know you and Mom deliberately didn't book my ticket or room." I saw the group chat. A long pause followed, then my father cleared his throat. "Look, son, we thought the wedding would go smoother without you there. Jordan's family has some important business connections attending. We cannot afford any incidents. When have I ever caused an incident at a family function?" My voice rose despite my effort to stay calm. "The Christmas party 2 years ago. Your cousin's graduation. Your temper. Gareth. The drinking. The scenes you cause when you feel slighted. We are just being practical here." I sank onto my couch, memories flooding back. Yes, I had gotten into an argument at Christmas, after enduring hours of subtle digs from my family, and at my cousin's graduation, I had called out Tyler for taking credit for a gift I had purchased. In my family's twisted narrative, standing up for myself was always labeled as causing a scene. "This is a new low, even for you two," I finally said. "You will get over it," my father replied dismissively. "You always do." That night, scrolling through more social media posts, I discovered that my 20-year-old cousin Abby, who had barely spoken 10 words to Ashley in the past decade, had been given an all-expenses-paid trip to the wedding. My Aunt Susan, who once publicly declared she thought Ashley was too pretentious, had a beachfront suite. Even Tyler, who had gotten drunk at Ashley's college graduation party and told her fiancé that she had cheated on him in high school, was being treated to a luxury vacation. I was the only family member who had been intentionally excluded, the only one who had consistently supported Ashley throughout her life. The revelation didn't just hurt. It confirmed what I had suspected for years but tried to deny. In my family's eyes, I would always be considered less worthy, less important, less deserving of basic respect than everyone else. The next morning, I woke up determined to find a solution. I refused to accept defeat without exhausting every possibility. Hawaii was a big place after all. Surely there had to be some way to attend my only sister's wedding. I called the resort directly, explaining my situation to the sympathetic receptionist. "I am so sorry, sir, but we are completely booked for those dates. It is our busiest season, and with your sister's wedding party taking up so many rooms," she paused. "Actually, it looks like they reserved a block of 30 rooms 6 months ago." 30 rooms, I repeated. "And they are all filled?" "Yes, sir. The Stevens Campbell wedding has been one of our larger events this year." I thanked her and hung up, that sinking feeling intensifying. 30 rooms. My family had reserved 30 rooms, and somehow forgot the one person who had always been there for Ashley. Next, I called every airline that flew to Maui, trying to get on waiting lists for canceled flights. I searched alternative accommodations within driving distance of the resort. I even considered sleeping in a rental car if necessary. Nothing worked. Between the wedding and spring break tourism, everything within a reasonable distance was genuinely booked solid. In desperation, I called Ashley again. "What if I just stayed with you? I could sleep on the floor if needed." "I already suggested that," she said, her voice tight with stress. "But Jordan's parents said no. They are paying for the honeymoon suite as our wedding gift, and they don't want anyone else staying there." "I am so sorry, Gareth. What about Tyler?" I asked. "He must have space. Dad mentioned he got a suite." Ashley's prolonged silence told me everything. "They will not even ask him, will they?" I pressed. Mom and Dad contributed $5,000 toward Tyler's trip. She finally admitted. They said it was important for him to be comfortable since he is giving a speech at the reception. The irony nearly made me laugh. $5,000. They told me last month they couldn't afford to help with my plane ticket when I asked about costs. What? They told me they were handling everyone's arrangements equally. Gareth, I swear I didn't know any of this. I believed her, but it didn't lessen the sting. Tyler, who had barely spoken to Ashley in years after accusing her fiancé of stealing a business idea that was never his, was being treated to a luxury Hawaiian vacation on my parents' dime. Meanwhile, I couldn't even get them to help with a basic economy flight. Later that afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Jordan, Ashley's fiancé. "Hey Gareth," he said, sounding uncomfortable. "Ashley's pretty upset about this whole situation. That makes 2 of us," I replied, trying to keep the bitterness from my voice. I actually liked Jordan. He had always been decent to me. "Look, man, I wanted to call and say, well, my family's kind of traditional. Very focused on appearances. We have got some important business associates coming, and my dad's worried about." I don't know how to say this without sounding like a jerk. "Just say it, Jordan," he sighed. "My parents heard stories from your mom and dad about arguments, about you having problems with alcohol. They are concerned about potential disruptions. I told them it is probably all exaggerated, but they are stuck in their ways." I gripped my phone tighter. "So your family vetoed my invitation based on lies my parents told?" "Not vetoed exactly, but they supported the idea that maybe it is better this way. For everyone's stress levels." He paused. "I am really sorry, man. If it were just up to me and Ashley, but it wasn't up to them, that much was becoming increasingly clear. The final revelation came that evening, when my cousin Madison posted pictures from her Hawaii-bound flight. "Thanks Uncle Jeff and Aunt Linda for the surprise upgrade to first class. Blessed cousin sweating." I stared at the post, pieces clicking into place. Madison had been assigned to the room that should have been mine. The shortage excuse was yet another lie. When I called my mother to confront her about this latest discovery, her facade finally cracked. "You have always been so sensitive, Gareth. This isn't about you. It is about giving Ashley the perfect wedding without worrying about your feelings getting hurt over every little thing, or you getting into one of your states after a few drinks. Why cannot you just think about someone else for once?" The conversation left me reeling. In my family's distorted reality, I was selfish for wanting to attend my sister's wedding. I was inconsiderate for feeling hurt about being deliberately excluded from a family event that even distant relatives were attending. I was the problem, never them. That night, I made a decision that would alter the course of my life forever. If they wanted me gone so badly, I would give them exactly what they wanted, but not just from the wedding, from everything. As the wedding weekend arrived, I found myself in the surreal position of preparing to watch my sister's ceremony via live stream. Ashley had texted me the private link, along with another apology. Her message indicated she had tried one final time to convince our parents to find a solution. But they had shut her down completely, claiming it was too late to make changes. Saturday morning, I made coffee, set up my laptop, and logged into the stream 30 minutes early. The camera showed guests being seated in an outdoor venue overlooking the ocean. Rows of white chairs faced an elegant floral arch with the brilliant blue Pacific stretching to the horizon behind it. As the guests filtered in, I recognized faces I hadn't seen in years. Cousins from across the country, former neighbors, my father's golf buddies, my mother's book club friends, all there to celebrate Ashley while I sat alone in my apartment, 3,000 miles away. Then I noticed something that made my heart lurch. In the front row next to where my parents would sit was an empty chair with a small reserve sign. The camera briefly zoomed in as the wedding planner adjusted something nearby, and I could clearly read the sign, "Reserved for Gareth Stevens." They had saved me a seat they knew would remain empty because they had ensured I couldn't be there to fill it. The significance wasn't lost on me. This wasn't just about excluding me. It was about creating a visible symbol of my absence, a conversation piece. Why was the brother of the bride missing from such an important day? What drama had occurred? What was wrong with him that he couldn't even show up for his sister? The ceremony began, and I watched as my father walked Ashley down the aisle. She looked beautiful in her flowing gown, but even through the screen, I could see her eyes dart repeatedly to that empty front row seat. Her smile seemed strained when she passed it. During the vows, I noticed my mother dabbing at her eyes theatrically, while my father stood proudly beside Tyler, both looking the picture of the perfect supportive family. The irony was almost too much to bear. After the ceremony, as guests moved to the reception, my phone began buzzing with notifications. Family members were tagging me in posts. "Such a beautiful ceremony. Wish you could have made it, Gareth. Missing you today, cousin. The family isn't complete without you." The comments created an entirely false narrative that I had chosen not to attend, or perhaps couldn't afford the trip. No one acknowledged the truth that my own parents had orchestrated my absence, and then created a visible reminder of it for everyone to see and speculate about. As I continued watching the live stream during the reception, the camera panned to my father standing to give his toast. He tapped his champagne glass, waiting for the room to quiet. "Before I begin," he said with a warm smile that never reached his eyes, "I want to acknowledge the empty chair we reserved for my son Gareth, who couldn't be with us today." He paused dramatically. "Though, on the bright side, at least we know the open bar is safe tonight." The room erupted in laughter. My father, encouraged by the response, continued. "Some of you might remember his performance at last year's family reunion. I think the resort is still finding bottles, more laughter, more knowing glances exchanged. My phone buzzed again. My cousin Madison, one of the few family members who had always been kind to me, had texted. "This is BS Gareth. I know what they did. I am recording this so you can see how they are acting." Throughout the evening, Madison sent video after video of jokes made at my expense. Tyler's speech included a pointed comment about being the reliable brother. My mother told a guest loudly enough to be overheard. "Gareth was just so jealous of the attention Ashley's getting. You know how he is." The final indignity came when someone produced a life-sized cardboard cutout of me from a family photo, propping it up for group pictures. Now Gareth can be in the wedding photos too. My Aunt caroled as everyone posed with my cardboard likeness, making exaggerated faces or pretending to give it drinks. Madison texted again, "They are telling everyone you refused to come because you were jealous of Ashley's happiness. That you are having emotional problems again. I tried to defend you, but no one's listening." I shut my laptop, unable to watch anymore. The public humiliation was complete. My family hadn't just excluded me from a significant life event. They had turned me into a punchline, a cautionary tale. The family member so problematic, he couldn't even attend his sister's wedding. In that moment, something shifted inside me. The hurt and betrayal crystallized into something harder, more determined. If they wanted to create a narrative about me being absent, I would give them a true absence they would never forget. I spent the rest of the evening planning, not out of spite or revenge, but from a place of quiet resolve. For too long I had allowed myself to be cast as the family scapegoat, always hoping for acceptance that never came. It was outlined every step I would need to take to disappear completely from my family's life. Not just for a day or a week, but indefinitely. Perhaps forever. The Monday after Ashley's wedding, I woke up with absolute clarity about what needed to happen next. This wasn't an impulsive decision born from hurt feelings. It was the culmination of years of emotional manipulation and disrespect. I needed a clean break, and I needed to do it methodically. First, I contacted my company's HR department. As a software developer with consistently positive performance reviews, I had built enough professional capital to request a transfer to our Seattle office. My manager was surprised but supportive when I cited family reasons for the sudden move. "We can have you set up in Seattle within 3 weeks," she assured me. "The team there has been looking to expand anyway." Next, I called my landlord to give notice on my apartment. Fortunately, I was month to month, which simplified matters considerably. I began researching apartments in Seattle, focusing on secure buildings where visitors couldn't gain access without resident approval. I created a detailed spreadsheet of everything that needed to be done, changing my phone number, closing and reopening bank accounts with no paper statements, redirecting mail to a new PO box, closing all current social media accounts, and creating new ones under slightly different name variations that family wouldn't immediately recognize. As I worked through my checklist over the next 2 weeks, I anticipated the family fallout. It arrived exactly when expected, starting with an annoyed text from my mother 3 days after the wedding. "You could at least acknowledge the lovely ceremony. Ashley is hurt by your silence." I didn't respond. The next day, "Stop being childish. Gareth, you are making Ashley's honeymoon all about you again." And from my father, "Man up and call your sister. This silent treatment is pathetic." Tyler joined in, "Way to make her special day all about your drama." Again, I read each message with detached interest, noting how quickly they shifted from faux concern to anger when I didn't immediately fall back into the familiar pattern of apologizing for reactions to their behavior. Their messages revealed how accustomed they were to my compliance, how entitled they felt to my forgiveness, regardless of their actions. By the end of week 2, the tone changed. My mother left voicemails claiming concern about my mental health. My father mentioned reaching out to authorities if I didn't respond. Tyler suggested I was having another episode. None acknowledged their role in creating the situation. Ashley's messages were different, tinged with what seemed like genuine worry. "Please just let me know you are okay, Gareth. Whatever happened, we can work through it." I broke my silence only for her, sending a brief text. I am fine, need space. We will contact you when ready. By week 3, I had secured an apartment in Seattle's Fremont neighborhood, transferred all my utilities, and packed only what mattered most. I donated or sold everything else. The day before my departure, I changed my phone number, closed all social media accounts, and established new digital identities that would be difficult for family to track. The morning of my flight to Seattle, I left my keys with the building manager and took one last look at the city that had been my home. There was a strange lightness in my chest, like setting down a heavy burden I had carried for so long. I had forgotten it wasn't part of me. 2 months passed in my new life. Seattle suited me with its coffee culture and tech community. I found a routine that centered me. Morning runs along the water, focused work days, evening exploration of my new neighborhood. I started therapy, something I had considered for years but always avoided, fearing my family would use it as further proof that I was the unstable one. My therapist, Dr. Lawson, helped me recognize patterns I had been blind to my entire life. What you are describing, Gareth, is consistent with being the family scapegoat, she explained during one session. It is a dynamic where one family member absorbs all the blame and negative projections, allowing others to avoid accountability. The validation was both painful and liberating. For the first time, I had context for experiences I had always internalized as personal failings. I wasn't inherently problematic. I had been assigned that role within a dysfunctional system. Meanwhile, my family's attempts to contact me grew increasingly frantic. They reached out to friends, colleagues, even my old building manager. Madison kept me informed of their efforts, having promised to respect my boundaries while maintaining minimal contact. They have convinced themselves you are having some kind of breakdown, she texted. Aunt Linda is telling everyone you couldn't handle Ashley getting all the attention. Uncle Jeff suggested you might be in rehab. I thanked her for the information but maintained my resolve. The peace I had found in my new life confirmed I had made the right decision. Nearly 2 months into my Seattle chapter, the expected escalation occurred. Madison warned me that Ashley had obtained my former address and was flying out to check on me. I wasn't surprised of all my family members. She was the most likely to make a genuine effort. When my doorbell rang the next evening, I watched through the security camera as Ashley stood outside my old building, repeatedly pressing buttons for different apartments. The building manager eventually came out, and I could see their conversation becoming heated as Ashley demanded information about my whereabouts. My phone rang minutes later. Ashley's name appeared on the screen, the only family contact I had kept. Gareth, where are you? I met your apartment building, and they are saying you moved out weeks ago. No one knows where you have gone. Her voice cracked. Everyone's worried sick. I took a deep breath. I am safe and well, Ashley. I have relocated for work. It was a good opportunity. I couldn't pass up without telling anyone, without saying goodbye. Disbelief colored her voice. That is not like you at all. Mom and Dad think you are having some kind of episode. They are talking about filing a missing persons report. I am a 32-year-old man who chose to move and change his phone number. That is not a police matter. It is a personal decision. But why? Is this because of the wedding? I have apologized 1,000 times. Gareth, I truly didn't know what they were planning. This isn't about just the wedding. Ash, it is about a lifetime of being treated as less than, of being the family scapegoat, of having my feelings dismissed and my character assassinated. The wedding was simply the final confirmation of what I have always known but tried to deny. Silence stretched between us. Then they are saying, you have had some kind of mental break, that you have always been unstable, and now you have finally snapped. Of course they are, I said quietly, because acknowledging their role in this would require self-reflection they are not capable of. It is easier to diagnose me than examine themselves. Gareth, please, just come home. We can work through this together. I am home, Ashley. For the first time in my life, I am exactly where I need to be. After we hung up, I went to my desk and retrieved an envelope I had prepared weeks ago. Inside was a carefully documented history of our family dynamics. Screenshots of messages, transcripts of conversations, a timeline of incidents dating back to childhood, and a letter explaining my perspective on our family's patterns. I had created it not out of vindictiveness but clarity. Knowing this moment would eventually come, I sent it via express mail to Ashley's home address with a simple note. When you are ready, over the next few months, I built a life that felt authentically mine. I joined a local hiking group, made genuine friends who knew me as I was, rather than who my family had labeled me to be. I even started dating Natalie, a graphic designer I met at a coffee shop near my apartment. For perhaps the first time, I was in a relationship uncomplicated by the baggage of my family's narratives about me. My therapist noted the changes. Your affect is different, she observed during our 6th month of sessions. There is a groundedness to you now that wasn't there before. She was right. The constant background anxiety I had lived with for decades had finally begun to subside. I no longer braced for criticism with every phone call. No longer filtered my words through the lens of how they might be twisted later. I was learning who Gareth actually was, when not defined in opposition to his family's expectations. Madison's updates continued, providing a window into the family's evolving narrative about my absence. They have moved on from mental breakdown to more creative explanations, she reported. Your mom told my mom you have joined a startup that is basically a cult. Your dad's telling people you couldn't handle adult responsibilities and ran away. Tyler suggested you might be in legal trouble. The information no longer stung as it once would have. I observed it with clinical detachment, further evidence that my decision had been necessary and correct. Then came the twist I hadn't anticipated. Madison texted me a screenshot of a family email chain claiming my father had been diagnosed with heart problems, supposedly triggered by stress over my disappearance. My mother was planning a family gathering to support each other during this difficult time. I showed the message to Dr. Lawson during our next session. Do you think it is true? I asked. Should I reach out? She considered carefully before responding. Based on the patterns you have described, this has elements of what we call an extinction burst. When long-established manipulation tactics stop working, there is often an escalation before potential change. False health crises are unfortunately common in these scenarios. A quick call to Madison confirmed my therapist's assessment. Your dad is fine, Gareth. I saw him playing tennis yesterday. When I mentioned his heart condition, he winked and said sometimes family needs a little motivation to come together. The revelation should have angered me, but instead, I felt an odd sense of peace. Even their most dramatic attempts to manipulate me no longer worked. I was finally free. As Seattle's rainy winter gave way to spring, I found myself thriving in ways I had never thought possible. My work performance exceeded expectations, earning me not just a promotion but recognition as a key team member. The constant energy I had once expended navigating family dynamics was now channeled into creative problem-solving and building meaningful connections. You have become one of our most valuable engineers. My new manager commented during my performance review. That architecture overhaul you proposed last month. Brilliant work. Outside of work, I discovered parts of myself that had been suppressed for years. I joined a community garden finding unexpected joy in nurturing living things. I took up photography, capturing the moody beauty of Pacific Northwest landscapes. Most surprisingly, I began volunteering as a mentor with a youth program for teens from challenging family backgrounds. You really get it, remarked Carlos, a 16-year-old in the program dealing with parents who constantly compared him unfavorably to his older sister. Most adults just say to ignore it, or that family is everything no matter what. Sometimes the healthiest thing is setting boundaries, I told him. That doesn't mean giving up on relationships entirely, but it does mean requiring basic respect. My relationship with Natalie deepened over shared hikes, quiet evenings, cooking together, and conversations that stretched into the early morning hours. Unlike previous relationships where I had kept parts of myself hidden, afraid they would confirm my family's narrative about me, with Natalie, I found myself able to be completely authentic. I love how comfortable you are in your own skin, she told me one evening, as we walked along Alki Beach. "You know who you are." The irony wasn't lost on me. Only by completely separating from those who claimed to know me best had I finally discovered myself. Madison's updates continued, though less frequently as my family's urgency about my whereabouts began to wane. The narrative had shifted again. "Now they are saying you are finding yourself and they are giving you space," she reported. As if this was their idea all along. Classic. 6 months into my new life, I received the update I had been both expecting and dreading. "Ashley finally opened your letter," Madison texted. She called me in tears. Said she had no idea things had been that bad for so long. She is pretty shaken up. I felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication, yes. But also sadness that it had taken such drastic measures for even my most supportive family member to fully see the dynamics at play. Ashley called the next day. I answered, prepared for either reconciliation or rejection. "I read everything," she said without preamble, her voice rough. "The screenshots, the timeline, your letter. Gareth, I don't even know what to say except I am so sorry. I knew things were unbalanced, but seeing it all documented like that, I had no idea how systematic it was. It is hard to see patterns when you are inside them," I said gently. "Especially when you weren't the primary target, but I should have seen more, should have done more." Her voice broke. "All those times I thought you were overreacting or being too sensitive. You were just responding to things I didn't fully witness." We talked for nearly 3 hours. Ashley shared her own struggles within the family system. The pressure she felt to maintain peace at all costs. The subtle ways she had been rewarded for reinforcing the established narrative about me. "Jordan and I have been having problems," she confessed. "His family is so similar to ours in some ways. The same expectations to always keep up appearances, to never acknowledge when something's wrong. Reading your letter made me realize I have been repeating patterns I swore I would avoid." By the end of our conversation, a fragile new understanding had formed between us. Not instant reconciliation, but the foundation for something potentially healthier than what had existed before. "I will not tell them where you are," she promised, "but they are planning something for Mom and Dad's anniversary next month. A big family gathering. They are using it as a 'I think you should come.' Gareth, on your terms, say what needs to be said." The suggestion triggered immediate anxiety. A physical reminder of how deeply ingrained my family's influence remained. "I will think about it," I promised, neither committing nor refusing outright. After our call, I discussed the invitation with Dr. Lawson, weighing potential benefits against likely costs. "You have done tremendous work establishing boundaries," she noted. "The question now is whether you can maintain them in direct contact, or if distance remains necessary for your well-being." The answer wasn't immediately clear. I spent weeks considering all angles, discussing strategies with my therapist, and preparing for every possible scenario. Natalie offered unwavering support. "Regardless of my decision, whatever you choose, I am here," she assured me. "But remember who you are now. Don't let them pull you back into old patterns." Her words resonated deeply. The person I would become in Seattle was someone I genuinely liked and respected. Could that version of Gareth survive re-entry into my family's gravitational field? As the anniversary date approached, I made my decision. I would attend, not from obligation or hope for dramatic reconciliation, but from a position of hard-won strength. This would be an opportunity to demonstrate, primarily to myself, that I was no longer vulnerable to their manipulations. I made careful preparations, booking my own hotel, rather than staying at the family home, arranging my own transportation, scheduling sessions with Dr. Lawson, both before and after the visit. I created clear internal boundaries about what behaviors I would and wouldn't accept, what topics I was willing to discuss, and when I would simply leave if necessary, the night before my flight to Boston. Natalie helped me pack, offering reassurance and practical support. "Remember, you can call me anytime, day or night," she said, squeezing my hand. "And if you need to leave early, just say the word, and I will have your return ticket changed." Her unwavering support contrasted sharply with my family's conditional acceptance. In that moment, I fully recognized the difference between love and obligation, between healthy attachment and toxic entanglement. Whatever happened tomorrow, I had built something real and valuable in Seattle. That knowledge would be my anchor. As my plane took off the next morning, I felt a strange sense of calm. After 10 months of complete separation, I was returning not as the family scapegoat desperate for approval, but as a man who had discovered his worth independent of their assessment. Whether they recognized the change or not, no longer determined my value. I was finally truly free. The Uber dropped me off at my parents' suburban home exactly on time. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, taking in the familiar colonial-style house where I had grown up. It looked smaller somehow, less imposing than in my memories. I deliberately arrived 30 minutes after the gathering's official start time, ensuring everyone would be present when I entered. Ashley had confirmed my strategy via text that morning. "Everyone's here. They are all expecting you." Dad's already had 2 scotches, taking a deep breath. I walked up the familiar path and rang the doorbell, the sound triggering an immediate hush inside. Footsteps approached, and the door swung open to reveal my mother, her expression cycling rapidly from anticipation to shock to a practiced smile. "Gareth, you came." She moved as if to hug me, but I subtly stepped back, maintaining physical space that matched my emotional boundaries. "Hello, Mother," I said evenly. "Happy anniversary." Her smile faltered at my composed demeanor. She would clearly expected either hostile anger or desperate reconciliation. Not this calm self-possession. "Everyone's in the living room," she recovered, gesturing inside. "They will be so happy to see you." I followed her through the foyer, conscious of every detail. The family photos on the wall. I appeared in remarkably few. The familiar smell of my mother's signature potpourri. The sound of tense conversation that stopped abruptly as I entered the living room. All eyes turned to me. My father stood by the fireplace, drink in hand. Tyler lounged on the couch with his wife. Jenna, various aunts, uncles, and cousins were scattered throughout the room, including Madison, who gave me a subtle supportive nod. Ashley and Jordan stood near the window, their body language revealing their nervousness. "Well, look who finally decided to grace us with his presence," my father said, breaking the silence. "The prodigal son returns." "Hello, everyone," I replied, voice steady. It has been a while. What followed was a masterclass in family dynamics. Relatives approached one by one, their reactions revealing their places in the system. Some embraced me with genuine warmth. Others maintained distance, as if my instability might be contagious. Tyler pointedly remained seated, raising his glass in mocking acknowledgement. My mother fluttered around, playing her practice role of conciliator. "Isn't this wonderful? The whole family together again. And on our anniversary too, it is like a sign." I accepted a non-alcoholic drink from Ashley and circulated through the room, engaging in brief, polite conversations while observing the undercurrents. Madison eventually made her way to my side. "They have been planning this for weeks," she murmured. "Your dad's calling it an intervention." I nodded slightly, unsurprised. "When do they plan to start?" "After dinner. They have a whole script prepared." Dinner proceeded with artificial pleasantness, everyone avoiding substantive topics in favor of weather observations and bland anecdotes. My mother repeatedly emphasized how complete the family felt, while my father made pointed comments about responsibilities and family obligations. Tyler maintained a running commentary of inside jokes that pointedly excluded me. Finally, as dessert was served, my father tapped his glass. "Now that we are all fed and comfortable, I think it is time we address the elephant in the room." He fixed me with a stern gaze. "Gareth, your behavior over the past year has caused this family tremendous pain and worry." And so it began. The intervention I had been warned about unfolded exactly as expected. Family members had apparently been assigned specific roles. My father as the authoritative head, my mother as the wounded matriarch, Tyler as the responsible contrast to my instability, and various relatives as chorus members affirming the established narrative. "We have compiled a list," my father continued, producing several typed pages. "Instances where your behavior has been problematic, dating back to your teenage years." As he began reading through a litany of supposed transgressions, I remained silent, allowing the performance to continue. The list was revealing, not for its content, but for its framing. Every instance of my standing up for myself was labeled argumentative behavior. Every boundary I had attempted to set was selfish isolation. Even legitimate grievances, like being excluded from Ashley's wedding, were twisted into evidence of my instability and attention-seeking. The revelation should have angered me, but instead, I felt an odd sense of peace. Even their most dramatic attempts to manipulate me no longer worked. I was finally free. One by one, family members contributed their pieces to the narrative. Tyler spoke at length about the burden of being the reliable brother while I caused drama. Aunts and uncles offered anecdotes of times I would supposedly embarrass the family. Even Ashley was expected to participate, though she limited her comments to generic concerns about communication. Throughout it all, I remained calm, making direct eye contact with each speaker, my expression neutral. Their discomfort grew visibly with each passing moment. They had expected defensiveness, anger, perhaps even a breakdown that would further confirm their diagnosis of my character. My composed silence disrupted their script entirely. Finally, my father concluded, "So we have all agreed. If you want to be part of this family going forward, there need to be conditions. Regular check-ins, therapy reports, sobriety commitments, attendance at all family functions. No more disappearing acts or silent treatments when you don't get your way." The room fell silent, all eyes on me waiting for my response. I took a deliberate sip of water, set down my glass, and smiled slightly. "Thank you all for sharing your perspectives," I began, my voice steady. "I have listened carefully to everything you have said. Now I would like to respond, if that is acceptable." When he finished, my mother took over, tears strategically appearing. "We are telling you this because we love you, Gareth. Your disappearing act this past year gave us all health problems. Your father's heart, my migraines. The stress has been unbearable." Protests immediately erupted, but I raised my hand. "I have listened to all of you without interruption. I am asking for the same courtesy." To my surprise, they fell silent. "I have recorded this entire conversation tonight, with Washington State's one-party consent," I continue. "Not because I planned to use it against you, but because I wanted to ensure I had an accurate record of what was said. Similarly, I have been documenting our family dynamics for years, often unconsciously. Ashley has seen some of this documentation." I glanced at my sister, who nodded slightly, her expression a mix of anxiety and resolve. "What I have come to understand is that every family system needs a scapegoat, someone to carry the blame for everyone else's discomfort or failures. In our family, that role was assigned to me. The evidence is overwhelming and consistent." I turned to my father. "Dad, when you claim I have caused family disruptions, you are referring to instances where I objected to being belittled or marginalized. For example, at Christmas 2 years ago, you mocked my career choice for 45 minutes before I finally responded. When I did, I became the problem, not your sustained disrespect." I faced my mother next. "Mom, you have consistently prioritized appearance over authenticity. When I have expressed genuine feelings, you have labeled them inappropriate or excessive because they didn't fit the narrative you prefer to present to others. Case in point, deliberately excluding me from Ashley's wedding, then creating a public narrative that I chose not to attend. One by one, I addressed specific incidents they had raised, reframing them with context they would conveniently omitted. I wasn't angry or accusatory. I simply presented the complete picture they would strategically edited. When I mentioned the wedding exclusion, I played a recording Ashley had secretly made during the reception, capturing my father's jokes at my expense and my mother's fabricated explanations for my absence. The room grew increasingly uncomfortable as I continued, presenting evidence that contradicted their carefully constructed narrative. Family members shifted in their seats, avoiding eye contact, my father's face flushed with anger, while my mother's expression cycled between indignation and calculation, seeking a way to continue. Is your response to my boundary setting? Healthy families respect boundaries. Dysfunctional ones punish them. When I stepped back to protect my mental health, you didn't respect my needs or reflect on what drove me away. Instead, you escalated, inventing health crises, threatening police involvement, and now staging this intervention to re-establish control. I paused, making eye contact with each person in the room. I didn't come here today seeking apologies or dramatic reconciliations. I came to state clearly that I understand the dynamic now, and I am no longer available to play the role assigned to me. My worth isn't determined by your assessment. My reality isn't defined by your narrative. The silence that followed was profound. Some relatives looked genuinely thoughtful, as if considering our family patterns for the first time. Others appeared defensive or confused. Tyler stared at his glass, unusually subdued. My father seemed stuck between rage and disbelief that his authority was being so directly challenged. It was my mother who recovered first, attempting to re-establish the familiar pattern. This is exactly the kind of dramatic, attention-seeking behavior we are talking about, she said, voice trembling with manufactured emotion, always making everything about you, always claiming to be the victim. That is a perspective I acknowledged calmly. One I no longer accept. I am not claiming victimhood. I am establishing boundaries. There is a crucial difference. I stood up, signaling my readiness to conclude the conversation. I have built a life I am proud of. I have meaningful work, authentic relationships, and a much clearer understanding of healthy interaction. I am open to individual relationships with anyone here who can engage respectfully. But I will no longer participate in dynamics that require my diminishment. Looking directly at my parents, I added, that means no more scapegoating. No more public humiliation disguised as humor. No more rewriting history to preserve comfortable narratives. If those boundaries are too restrictive for you, I understand. But they are non-negotiable for me. With that, I thanked them for dinner, wished my parents a happy anniversary once more, and walked calmly toward the door. The script they had prepared had called for my capitulation or explosive reaction. My boundary setting and exit left them without a familiar response pattern. As I reached the foyer, Ashley followed me. I am proud of you, she whispered, quickly hugging me. This needed to be said for so long. Madison joined us, offering a supportive smile. That was something else. Are you okay? Better than okay, I replied. Honestly, for the first time in this house, I feel completely clear about who I am and what I deserve. As I walked to my waiting Uber, I heard raised voices inside. The family system already working to reinterpret what had happened in a way that preserved established roles. But for once, I didn't need to know their version of events. My truth no longer depended on their acceptance. I texted Natalie from the car. It is done. Boundaries established. Heading back to the hotel. Her response came immediately. So proud of you. Call when you are ready to talk. Love you. That simple message, containing more genuine support than I had received from my family in decades, confirmed what I already knew. I was heading home tomorrow, to Seattle, to the life and relationships I had built on a foundation of mutual respect and authentic connection. For the first time, I felt not just relief at escaping my family, but genuine hope for what lay ahead. Whatever they chose to do with the boundaries I had established was their decision. My responsibility was to the life I was creating, not the one I had been assigned. The aftermath of the confrontation unfolded gradually over the following months. As expected, my family's initial reaction was to close ranks and reaffirm their established narrative. My father declared me beyond help, while my mother alternated between wounded innocence and dire predictions about my future. Tyler seized the opportunity to solidify his position as the good son, making a show of supporting our parents through their ordeal. What I hadn't anticipated was the quiet ripple effect my boundary setting would create among extended family members. Madison reported that several cousins had begun questioning the family dynamics more openly, particularly after witnessing my calm, evidence-based approach at the anniversary gathering. "Aunt Susan actually defended you at the last family dinner," Madison texted. "Said maybe everyone should consider whether there was truth to what you said." Uncle Jeff nearly choked on his potatoes. Even more surprising was my grandmother's call 3 weeks after the confrontation. We hadn't spoken in years, as she would largely withdrawn from family gatherings due to her own difficult relationship with my parents. "I watched the recording Ashley shared with me," she said, without preamble. "You remind me of myself at your age, seeing clearly what everyone else pretends not to notice." Our conversation revealed generational patterns I would never fully understood. My father had been the golden child in his family. My uncle, the scapegoat. My grandmother had tried to intervene but was labeled difficult and gradually marginalized. The dynamics hadn't been created with me. They had been transferred, with roles reassigned but fundamentals unchanged. "Your grandfather and I eventually established a relationship with your father that had very strict boundaries," she explained. "It wasn't perfect, but it was the only way we could have any relationship at all." Her validation and perspective provided another piece of the puzzle, helping me understand that what I had experienced wasn't unique or personal, but part of a much larger pattern. This knowledge further reduced the lingering doubts about whether I had overreacted or misinterpreted my family's behavior. Meanwhile, my life in Seattle continued to flourish. My relationship with Natalie deepened, built on mutual respect and genuine communication. My work thrived, leading to another promotion and the opportunity to lead a significant new project. My volunteer mentoring expanded to include a support group for young adults from dysfunctional family systems. 4 months after the confrontation, Ashley called with unexpected news. "Jordan and I are separating for a while," she said. Her voice tired but resolute. "Reading your documentation and seeing how you set boundaries made me realize I have been accepting a lot of unhealthy dynamics in my own marriage." She explained that Jordan's family operated very similarly to ours, with rigid roles and appearance-based values. The wedding pressure had magnified existing issues, and now she was taking time to evaluate what she truly wanted. "It might not be permanent," she clarified. "We are both in counseling, separately and together, but for the first time, I am prioritizing my actual needs over what everyone expects of me. It is terrifying and liberating at the same time." Her journey paralleled my own in many ways. Though our specific circumstances differed, we began speaking weekly, supporting each other through the challenges of reconfiguring family relationships and self-concept simultaneously. 5 months after the confrontation, the first tentative steps toward potential reconciliation began, initiated unexpectedly by my father. His email was brief and formal. "Your mother and I have been discussing your concerns. We would appreciate an opportunity to address them at your convenience." The old Gareth would have jumped at this opening, eager for any acknowledgement. The person I would become approached it with cautious consideration, discussing it thoroughly with Dr. Lawson before responding. "Remember that true reconciliation requires accountability and changed behavior, not just words," she advised. "Be open to possibility, but anchored in your boundaries." I replied with equal formality, suggesting a video call rather than an immediate in-person meeting. When the call occurred, I was struck by subtle but significant changes in my parents' presentation. My father was less authoritative, my mother less dramatically emotional. They didn't offer a full acknowledgement of the dynamics I had identified, but they did express willingness to consider different perspectives and establish new patterns of communication. It was a small step, far from the complete recognition I might have once craved, but it represented movement in a healthier direction. We agreed to limited, structured contact, monthly calls with clear time boundaries, and the explicit understanding that certain behaviors like public humiliation or dismissal of feelings would result in immediate conversation termination. Tyler remained entrenched in his position, refusing any conversation that might redefine his role in the family system. I accepted this reality without resentment, recognizing that his identity was perhaps too deeply intertwined with his position as the superior brother to risk re-examination. By the time the one-year anniversary of my disappearance approached, my life had transformed in ways I could never have imagined. The constant background anxiety that had been my lifelong companion had diminished to occasional manageable moments. I had learned to trust my perceptions without requiring external validation. Most importantly, I had built connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation or role fulfillment. Natalie and I had moved in together, creating a home that felt safe and nurturing for both of us. One evening, as we sat on our balcony watching the sunset over Puget Sound, I found myself reflecting on the extraordinary journey of the past year. "I am thinking of hosting a small gathering next month," I said, "a kind of celebration." "What are we celebrating?" she asked. Curious, I smiled. "New beginnings, chosen family. The life we are building." The guest list formed naturally. Close friends from Seattle. Colleagues who would become trusted confidants. Madison and her partner. My grandmother, who had agreed to her first plane trip in a decade, and Ashley, who was cautiously optimistic about her ongoing counseling with Jordan. Most surprisingly, after careful consideration and several more structured conversations, I included my parents with clear expectations about behavior and boundaries. Their tentative steps toward changed interaction patterns deserved recognition, even as I maintained realistic expectations about the limits of transformation. The evening of the gathering arrived. Our apartment transformed with twinkling lights and comfortable seating arrangements, designed to facilitate easy conversation. As guests arrived, I observed my parents' careful navigation of this unfamiliar territory, where they weren't automatically the central authority figures. My mother approached Natalie with uncharacteristic humility. "Thank you for welcoming us into your home," she said. "It is lovely to finally meet you." My father shook hands with my work friends, visibly restraining his usual impulse to establish dominance through aggressive humor or competitive questioning. When my grandmother arrived, the complex history between them created palpable tension, but both made visible efforts to engage respectfully. Throughout the evening, I watched these disparate parts of my life interact, creating new connections independent of me. Madison and my Seattle friends exchanged contact information. My grandmother and Natalie discovered a shared interest in gardening. Even my parents found moments of genuine engagement with people who knew me as I truly was, not as the role I had been assigned in the family narrative. As dinner concluded, I found myself moved to speak. Standing at the head of the table, I looked around at these people who represented different chapters of my journey. A year ago, I believed I had to choose between family and self-respect. I began. What I have learned since is that true family, whether related by blood or by choice, supports your wholeness rather than requiring your diminishment. I raised my glass to all of you who have shown me what healthy connection looks like, to boundaries that protect rather than walls that isolate, and to the ongoing journey of building relationships based on mutual respect rather than assigned roles. As conversations resumed around the table, Ashley joined me by the window. "This is what family should feel like," she said quietly. "Safety without suffocation. Connection without control." It took losing what I thought was irreplaceable to discover what was truly possible. I replied later as guests were leaving. My father approached me privately. "This isn't easy for me, Gareth," he admitted, gesturing vaguely to encompass the evening, our changed relationship, his own ongoing struggle with relinquishing established patterns. "But I am trying to understand." It wasn't an apology or full recognition, but it was honesty without manipulation, possibly the most authentic interaction we had ever shared. "I know," I said simply. "That is all any of us can do. Keep trying to understand better." After everyone had gone, and Natalie and I were cleaning up, she wrapped her arms around me from behind. "You know what I loved most about tonight? Watching you completely at ease in your own skin. Fully yourself with everyone, not shifting into different versions depending on who you were talking to." Her observation crystallized something I hadn't fully articulated even to myself. The greatest freedom I had gained wasn't from external circumstances but from internal congruence. The ability to be authentically myself across all contexts and relationships. 2 months later, Natalie and I became engaged, planning a small wedding in a Seattle garden for the following spring. I asked Ashley to be my best woman, a role she accepted with genuine joy. My parents would attend, operating within the boundaries we had established, and gradually refined. Tyler declined the invitation, a decision I accepted without the sting it might once have carried. My grandmother, now a regular presence in our lives through weekly video calls, offered the wisdom that became our unofficial wedding motto. Family isn't who shares your blood. It is who respects your soul. The journey from excluded family member to creator of my own healthy community hadn't been linear or simple. There had been setbacks and difficult moments, times when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. But with each challenge navigated, each boundary maintained, each authentic connection deepened. The path forward became increasingly clear. Standing up for myself hadn't been selfish or dramatic, as my family had always labeled such attempts. It had been the only way to discover who truly loved me, for myself, rather than for the role I played in their narrative. The people who remained in my life, and those new connections I had formed since establishing boundaries, were there because they valued the authentic Gareth, not because they needed me to absorb their projections or maintain their comfortable illusions. In choosing myself, I hadn't lost family as I had once feared. I had created space for genuine connection with those willing to engage respectfully, while building new relationships founded on mutual appreciation rather than obligation or role fulfillment. That perhaps was the most profound lesson of all. Sometimes walking away is the only path to finding your way home to yourself. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members or distance yourself from toxic relationships? I would love to hear your experiences and how you navigated these challenging situations. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories about personal growth and healing, and share with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage and clarity on your own path to authentic relationships.